known to you?
Who else were you expecting?
Well, bust my boiler.
During the production of Season 6 in 2001, a set of episodes called Jack Jumps In and A Friend in Need were made as pilot episodes for an upcoming spin-off series of Thomas the Tank Engine called Jack in the Pack. The series was more or less the same as Thomas, but instead of steam engines, they had construction vehicles. The series was filmed alongside Season 7 in 2003. It was supposedly intended for release either in 2003 or 2004. Things were looking great, but then something happened. Jack and the Pack. A rather tragic story, I'd say. So, we all know that Hit Entertainment absolutely fucked over Season 7 for the US, but did it do it for the Pack? In short, yes. Now remember, this series was never intended to be 1. A new season of Thomas, and 2. Be touched by Hit Entertainment in any way. It's similar to Season 7 in a sense that it got released at a very unlucky time. During this period, Hit Entertainment was just starting to absorb the Thomas company and was making plans to turn Thomas into, this. But anyway, believe it or not, Hit Entertainment didn't actually do anything with the series when they first got hold of it. They just stowed it away to never see the light of day again. The series would stay in their archives for a good few years before being randomly released onto DVD in 2006. Why did this happen? Well, it's simple. Merch sales. Hit was all about profit, and by the time 2006 came around, Hit had already introduced a plethora of new characters who would never appear again, yet they would get countless pieces of merchandise that they knew would sell well. And with them having access to a whole half series containing 10 brand new characters, of course they jumped at the opportunity for more merchandise sales. So what did they do? They slapped the episodes onto a DVD and promote the hell out of it, of course. And that's where I come in. Thomas's Trusty Friends was released on the 2nd of October 2006, being distributed by 2 Entertain after the replacement of VCI. It featured 11 episodes from the series, I'll get onto the other 2 later, don't worry, and was then later re-released by Hit Entertainment in 2008. You all know the drill by now, let's review the episodes. Starting off is A Visit from Thomas, a fantastic way to start this release. Something that I like about the pack is that it's very reminiscent of Season 1. Each character gets their own episode to themselves to establish their character, and while Jack got his arc in Season 6, I do personally think Alfie should have been next, but that's just nitpicking. It's also really nice to see that Sodor actually has lots of history, and isn't just this make-believe island. The whole dinosaur thing makes the island feel so much more real, and I can really appreciate it. The episode itself is pretty darn good, the model work is top-notch, and Angelus's energetic narration seeps through a little.
Hurry up there!
8 out of 10. Jack owns up, a fantastic episode with a fantastic moral. Now, I know, throughout seasons 1 to 5, the morals in Thomas were very minor and weren't the focus of attention. And as much as this series focuses a lot on morals, I kinda like it. In the new model era, the morals were bashed into the audience's heads, and it became very repetitive. But here it's done tastefully and makes for a great lesson. Another thing I like about this episode is how realised its ending is. The episode doesn't really end on a happy-go-lucky note where everyone is happy. While yes, Jack is glad that he owned up, he's still frustrated that he's being sent back to the yard. And that's what I like about this episode, not everybody gets away with the stuff they do. If this was an episode from season 10 or something, the main character would be forgiven and wouldn't have to go back to the yard. But in here, it feels real. The episode's ending is very wholesome, and once again, Angelus's energy starts to show again. 9 out of 10. On Site with Thomas, one of my favourite episodes of all time. From the fantastic narration, the calm atmosphere, the subtle comedy, and of course, the best crash in the entire series. The episode literally has it all and is entertaining from start to finish. The model work in this season is top notch, and I can't even imagine how difficult that crash would have been to film. Also, this episode is one of those rare times where Brandon makes a noise that doesn't even sound human.
Look out!
Like, what even is that? 10 out of 10. Percy's Scary Tale. Despite the false advertising with the title and some admittedly Sharon Miller-esque writing,
Alfie is small. So is Percy. Alfie is green. So is Percy.
No! Shut up! What? Really? Well, I never expected that.
the episode itself is pretty good. I love the night atmosphere and some of the camera work is pretty good too. Something else I really like is how real everything feels. The fact that the machines tell scary stories on their banksman's coffee breaks makes the pack feel like an actual group of friends, and not a forced set of characters who only talk to each other when absolutely necessary. The Steam Team. Anyway, the episode itself is pretty decent and is a fun watch in general. 7 out of 10.
So after the failure of Thomas and the Magic Railroad in 2000, Britt Allcroft left her own company and the show was bought by Hit Entertainment. Phil Ferrell took the liberty in creating what was supposed to be the first Thomas and Friends spin-off. It was called Jack and Soda Construction Company, and it was directed by Steve Asquith. He would actually go to direct season 8 to 12 of the show. 2 episodes were to be the gateway of the 26 episodic series, but it was cancelled because of financial difficulties in the acquisition of Hit Entertainment. So only 13 episodes were filmed, finished and stored away. It didn't help that there was already a show about talking construction vehicles that was skyrocketing in popularity. However, the 13 episodes were eventually released on DVD in 2006 in the US and UK. The models used in the pack were a much larger scale than the typical Gauge 1 models, being 3.5 inch gauge, which is around 3 times the size of the regular props. The idea of spin-offs was always a possibility after Tugs in 1989, and the idea of one about road vehicles such as Bertie, Harold, Trevor, Terrence, fucking Butch, was a possibility during the Hit era. The pack characters still remain as canon, with Jack being brought back in King of the Railway in 2013, and Oliver, Alfie, Max and Monty were brought back in Soda's Legend of the Lost Treasure in 2015. However, in 2019, the movie Digs and Discoveries brought all of these characters back on Thomas's trip around the world, and added some very peculiar characters.
Next up is Kelly's Windy Day. This episode is probably one of the most accurate Thomas episodes when it comes to portraying UK weather, as most of the time in Thomas it's sunny and warm, whereas in the UK, where Thomas is actually set by the way, it's actually like this. But anyway, other than that, the episode is pretty stock standard and does what an introductory episode, kind of, should do. I do like how Kelly is usually portrayed as the leader of the group and the mentor of Jack, yet Kelly still has flaws and can still be scared. It's a great message. And something else I like to note is that this whole series definitely takes advantage of the scale of the props and the sets. It looks amazing. 7 out of 10. A Happy Day for Percy, probably the most underrated episode of the lot. Now, as much as I'm about to praise this episode, let me explain its issues. For one, Byron. Now, Byron by himself isn't the issue, it's the fact that his character isn't developed almost at all in this episode. While yes, he wants more gratitude for his work, that's not really a personality trait. Kelly's Windy Day explores how PTSD can severely damage someone's confidence in the long run, and that's what happens to Kelly. Byron needed another episode to himself to fully establish his character. And yes, I know this series was cut short, but if Buster can have 2 episodes to himself, then why can't Byron? Anyway, now onto the good stuff, or in other words, the rest of the episode. This episode explores the dangers of a construction site, something that Thomas has done plenty of times before, and I can really appreciate that. It's something that I haven't seen too many other shows do before, and it's quite unique. Anyways, the action is great, the suspense is fantastic, and the setting hits very close to home. 8 out of 10. A Tale for Thomas, probably the prettiest episode of this series. Much like Kelly's Windy Day, this episode really hits home for me. I'm a sucker for the sunset, and this episode takes full advantage of it. I adore the calm atmosphere at the start and the end of the episode, and the tenseness of the main act spices up the episode just that little bit more. Everyone, and I mean everyone in this episode, plays a part. Even Thomas does, which is a rarity for this series. The faces on the models are as expressive as ever, the ending is wholesome. What more could you want? I'd give this episode an 11 if I could, but I'm going to have to give it a 10 out of 10. Thomas and the moles. Now, don't get me wrong, this episode isn't really that bad, it's just mediocre. Really, really mediocre. So, reason one, it's boring. Like, really fucking boring. Literally, nothing interesting happens in this episode. Buster is sad that he can't do a job. Then all of a sudden, he is needed. Like, but that is not an interesting concept. And the other poopy thing about the episode is those moles. Why in God's name would they be saying stuff like this?
He's good. Very good.
When their homes are being destroyed mercilessly by some knockoff George looking ass. Why are they just sitting there? Just move out of the way, you fucking... Anyway, the episode isn't that great, and it's just stupid as hell. 5 out of 10. Percy helps out. Definitely one of the most visually pleasing episodes of the series. I don't know why, but I absolutely love the look of huge TV props pulling along other huge TV props. Due to the scale of the models, everything just looks so big and real. It really makes for a good watch. Nelson is a really sympathetic character whose model is just gorgeous. The usage of sets, the slow and soothing music, everything just feels so natural, and this series genuinely feels like a classic season. 8 out of 10. The Tortoise and the Hare, the funniest episode of the series. Something I've noticed is that every season has an episode where it just fucks about, and this episode is definitely one of them. It's a simple story, but done in such a way that it's just so entertaining. Buster's introductory episode may not have been the greatest, but this episode makes up for it and then some. Max and Monty are at their best here and make for great antagonists, if that's what you want to call them. And Buster is very charming. The episode may look quite stock standard and generic, but I still enjoy everything else. 8 out of 10. Thomas's Trusty Friends, a very interesting episode. As much as I'm not a huge fan of Ned, as he is quite annoying, I still thoroughly enjoy this episode. Like how each season has one of those one-off stupid episodes, each season also has an episode where the director shows off their modelling capabilities, and this episode most definitely does that. It isn't as grand as something like Magic Railroad, where everything to do with the movie had a high budget, but this episode had a smaller budget and was able to do this. The episode is a masterpiece and is definitely one of the best. 9 out of 10. Alfie Has Kittens, definitely a forgotten episode. This episode is very much a guilty pleasure for me, as I absolutely love cats. I even have one of my own. The episode has a great message about self-belief and has some of the most underrated model work I've seen. I haven't really got much else to say other than that it's just really underrated, and it's just a good episode in general. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. 9 out of 10. And finally we have Mud Glorious Mud, once again an episode that reflects the UK weather perfectly. I don't necessarily have much to say about this episode either, but I do like how Isabella got some recognition. As while she is just a clone of Elizabeth, she does seem like a very interesting character who has a lot of potential. I'd give the episode an 8 out of 10. And that's actually it this time. It's weird. It's a weird situation. Obviously, last time in Bumper Pie Collection, I was like, this is the end of Classic Series. It wasn't. I do consider the Pack Classic Series, I prefer them to Season 6 and 7, but that's just me. But yeah, this is literally the end. We've been through every DVD UK release throughout Season 1, Season 2, Season 3, Season 4, Season 5, we've covered Magic Railroad, we've covered Season 6, we've covered Season 7, and now we have covered the Pack. So what next? Obviously the answer would be All Aboard the Steam Team, as that was referenced in my previous DVD review at the end. But who's to say I have to do that? Like, I have other options. I've got a whole list of video ideas which I could do. Wait, hang on a minute. Who says that I have to do season 8? Who says that I have to do these things? Who? Who says I have to do these? No one. Did I say I have to do it? No, I didn't. Okay? Screw it, alright? Season 2 of DVD Reviews ends here. I'm cancelling it. DVD Reviews, it's gone. I'm gonna make a new series called Family Double Feature Scooby-Doo DVD Reviews. You wait, you wait and see. Screw it, I don't care. It's gonna do, this thing right here is gonna do way better than this piece of shit that I'm doing right now. Goodbye.